And we'll get that going. Hoorah.
Yo,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Doing very well. I'll admit, I will ever get used to the sir. I tried using to you, and I was like, no, Crumbs, you sound sarcastic. You can't call him sir. Doesn't work. So how's the weekend been?
It's been good.
Excellent.
Nothing going on, so it's kind of nice.
Jackpot.
Yes, sir. Oh, there we go. But what have you been up to?
Just trying to craft a little bit, man. Trying to create a little bit and try and get back on track for the weekend or for the week. I want to try and get back into. I gotta get those videos up, man. I noticed I was on your page. I just saw you had the Joker one up, and it's like I'm slacking.
Oh yeah. Do you have any new interviews, or what do you have?
I've got a couple I'm sitting on actually, and that's why I feel like a bit of a dick that I'm not putting main focus there because these guys gave me their time. They came and sat down, so I know I've got to get those edited, and I like doing it too. I was actually even talking to Surmian about it earlier today. It's probably my favorite part because suddenly you're like, you get to capture all of the most amazing parts of this person. You know, in a conversation, sometimes you maybe overlook something, and then you're editing it, and you catch some of like these prolific or very like resonational things that just kind of like click or hit a spot, and all of a sudden you get to like almost relive that moment for a second. So I like that, man.
Yeah. Who do you have?
So far, I'm sitting on Simeon Cheese, Skull and Void. Oh my goodness, VHS Rex is in there. Simeon Cheese was a lot of fun. He threw me for and his collection is gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh, I bet he posts a lot of stuff.
It was interesting things. I didn't know he's a collector of like the actual factory molds. So a lot of
really?
He was pulling out like some of these steel molds that had made some of like the toys that we would have seen go through Mattel or Hasbro, and he's just showing off pieces of like these metal molds for it. That kind of stuff.
Oh, man. Yeah, that'd be pretty neat if you could use them.
It's funny because again, a lot of you dudes, I think that's like sometimes it gets me just laughing so much is because that was the first thing he said. He pulled out one of like a little monster car and he was like, now imagine you cast this up and you've actually got the little motor here, and right away it's just like, of course you're thinking, how can I replicate this process using this? I love it.
I guess that's what it would boil down to if you had the means or the skill to make it just like it was originally.
That's kind of part of the problem solving all the time that we're all, I think all you guys are going through.
Yeah. So where's everybody?
Yeah, so I think this is actually
is this going to be it? It's just going to be Goblin Mob and Crumbs?
Well, and we've actually got a couple other ones. Jackie Carter, I think this is her first one hopping in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm on.
Oh, here we go.
I'm on too.
Yo.
What's going on, guys?
And Death and Strawberries is lurking there as well. We've got his
okay
sitting there at the moment.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you out. It might have been a slight delay there. Sorry about that, Bear Boy. So, if anything, I just want to thank you guys coming in. I mean, I know it's Saturday. I'm sure a couple will kind of trickle in as we're going.
Yeah, I just told my wife to get lost. Yeah, we ain't gonna hang out today. It's like, no, I'm just kidding.
That is kind of part of the fun sometimes, though, is trying to navigate. Like we've said before, you don't often meet tons of people that you can really talk toys about. And then you got to try and... Sometimes I even, with the homies, I'll use the phrase like, oh, I've got a meeting. Sorry, man, I've got a work meeting. Sit and talk toys. So out of curiosity, I mean, I'm sure everybody's kind of aware of everybody a little bit, but did anybody, Jackie, do you mind kind of starting off, giving a little bit of an introduction to yourself, and we'll kind of go around from you to Goblin Mob over to Death and Strawberries and Burial Boba.
Sounds good. So hey everybody, I'm Jackie Carter. I sort of joined the scene as a collector, but I also am a painter as well. Work with mixed media, oil and acrylic, and deal a lot with sort of graphic imagery and horror imagery in my own work, and tend to lean towards that in terms of the work that I'm collecting right now as well.
Cool. Welcome.
That's it in a nutshell.
Goblin Mob, this is the first time we've had you come in and join us in the flesh or on video. Do you want to give us a little rundown about yourself?
Goblin Mob, I do figures, writing, painting, everything under the sun, I guess. YouTube videos, music.
And Barrel Boba, if you wanted to pop in there.
Sure. So I'm Barrio Boba on Instagram. I also started out as a collector, and I still spend my money collecting things that I like. Slowly made my way into casting and molding. And as you guys know, or if you've been aware of watching my feed, I've got wave 3 of the Barrio Boba gang coming out tonight.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Thanks.
And strawberries. Hey, Jim, why don't you give us a little bit of a quick little rundown what you've been up to?
Sorry, yeah, I had screaming kids. I don't know. I'm just kind of learning, playing along as I go and trying new things and I'm posting all that stuff just to kind of get ideas and inspiration and things like that from all of you guys. So I've been posting a bunch of stuff. I did a trade with Epoxy Crusader. So I built some little 5.5 inch like bootleg guys based on like Nacho Libre. And so finally the secret is out. He got to see it and open it and be surprised. So I'm slowly posting a bunch of stuff about that and my sloppy process and all that. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Man, I've got to commend you. You did something the other day that, like, considering you did sloppy process, I really, really, really liked that you went at the hip joint for the legs. I know it's not a big thing, but it's so overlooked. Like, we all think right away, like, okay, put the bottom on a Lego brick and pour it in. And when I saw it connecting like the vent to the hip joint, I was just like, oh, dude, I like that, man.
Yeah, that was definitely the hardest part too. It was really difficult to pull off. I'll be posting a little bit about that tomorrow, in like specifically that joint. But like I screwed up my mold. That's really, it all comes down to like my mold making skills are not very good yet, and I paid the price, but I made it work. So that was kind of fun to just work through the challenge too.
It came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I've been kind of lurking in the shadows. I didn't want to like post a bunch of stuff if it sucked. So I kind of wanted to like get something done and like, okay, this is decent, and then put it out there. So yeah, bit of a surprise. Sorry.
1 minute you were still like doing wax, playing with the armature. Next minute, 5-inch figure shows up in Mexico.
No, it's true. I'm all over the place. I have lots of things going. I'm kind of like that. I'm scatterbrained. I got to work on like 6 different things at the same time. And so unfortunately my posts are going to be kind of scattered like that too. But you were talking about like inspiration stuff. I missed that. I'm sorry. As far as getting into toys, like I really, when I was a kid, got into G.I. Joe hard. Like my brother was into it, and so like at age 2 or 3 I was already way into G.I. Joes, and that's been the thing that kind of drew me into the 3 3/4 inch, you know. We had a few Star Wars toys, but I was a bit late for that. I was born in 80, so you know, I wasn't as much into that. We also had some of those like Mego chips guys, if you remember those, but it was really all about G.I. Joe for me. And then we had a huge collection. My brother and I had almost every single vehicle and GI Joe that you could buy up through like 90 maybe. I think is when we kind of stopped. And then it's a typical story. My mom wanted to make space, so we donated them to a family that was, could use them. And I've always regretted that. She had to talk me into it. So anyway, flash forward to being an old guy, and I started buying those things back up like pre-pandemic when prices weren't as crazy as they are now. And I've got almost everything back, crazy enough. And then I started getting into Star Wars and some He-Man stuff too. And then my kids are like way into it. So that's been my excuse, was like, the kids like to play with it too, so it's cool to spend money on it. But they do enjoy it, and it's kind of cool to share that with them. So that's my toy habit in a nutshell.
I'm kind of curious. Would everybody kind of like say that probably what they ended up bringing for show and tell does resonate with probably like what they started collecting the most?
For me, yeah.
So I'm curious, does anybody feel like kind of starting us off and kind of showing us a little something and telling us all about it? No takers?
I'll
It's
go
supposed to be
first.
some. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, was it supposed to be something that was supposed to be inspiration of ours, or just anything in
Anything at all,
general?
man. In my
Oh,
opinion.
okay. Just asking. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, dealing with this kind of communication, this many people, man, it's going to happen all throughout a couple times. So, Jackie, why don't you start us off there?
Yeah, sure. Topic of like buying back stuff you had as a kid. So one of the first action figures I ever got like back in the day would be this Wolverine right here that used to have all the blades and everything with it, along with it came with a comic book, and that was sort of one of the first pieces I ever got. And so recently I actually acquired, from the same time period, an Elektra. I don't know if anybody read any of the Wolverine and Elektra comic books back in the day, but like how they were a thing. But so then I acquired her recently. And if anything, that's kind of what I find I'm doing is buying pieces that as a kid, you throw it in a trunk and ends up mixed in with a whole bunch of other pieces. And then it gets donated or sold at a yard sale. So that's kind of, I guess, like I said, that would be one of the first, the where I started, and then I'm starting to circle back to stuff now. I don't know if I went too fast with that. I can show again if anyone's interested.
Do the claws actually do anything? I'm actually kind of curious if there's any kind of sounds or anything.
Nah, that'd be super cool. With apparently Elektra does light up and do things, but I'm gonna have to take her apart. She's got some screws on the back that I'm gonna have to find a micro screwdriver for. I know I used to have knives that were all in there back in the day, and this comes off. So
That's what I've always loved, like fixing toys and stuff, like even when I was a kid. And I think that's part of the thing that kind of got me into like, well, maybe I could change this around, or I don't know if everybody else is the same way, but it was really an entry gateway drug for me. It was like, oh, this thing's broken, I gotta find a way to make it work again.
Yeah, for sure. I would say even like as a kid, when things like Furbies and stuff like that were really popular, it was always something that you didn't necessarily have around the house, but you'd luck out and find it at a yard sale, and then you're just trying to fix it up to get it working again. But it felt a little bit like Dr. Frankenstein, depending on the toy and how badly it was damaged. Yeah, that's my share.
Was there anybody who's screaming to go next? This one, I'm gonna share a bit of a weird one. So I mean, it's not really a toy, but I guess kind of it is like an art toy, depending on how you want to look at it. But it's actually a Bic lighter, and I guess like for me, this one's always really hard whenever you have displayed, and you can't really just like put it anywhere because it's engraved with "fuck communism." And the issue is that a lot of people don't understand the reference point for that, so automatically they just assume that you're a bit of a closed-minded individual. But the reality actually is that it comes from a comic book, but 2 comic books. So the first one would actually be Preacher, and Jesse Custer has like a really big bond with his father. He like looked up to his father a lot, and one of the last things and only things he carries with him from his father is actually a Bic lighter that says "fuck communism" engraved on it, because his father would have been in the military. And then there's actually a comic book called Why Last Man Alive, and in Why Last Man Alive, one of the lead characters is with like a CIA agent, and of course they find a pack of smokes during like the apocalypse. Everybody needs a dart when you haven't had one in so long, right? Life's stressful. And she asks him for a light, and of course he hands him a Bic lighter that says "fuck communism," and she's of course like, "What kind of person are you? Like, of course are you, like," and has some term, of course, for like an old geezer that would maybe think that way. And he explains that it's actually from a comic book that's really important. And she was like, "Comic books can say fuck communism?" And he was like, comic books can do anything you want them to do." And I remember just like the way that he's like then goes off to explain like the power of graphic novels. It's just like that was like my first time like really seeing a comic book address that fact, where it's like, yeah, no, this isn't Superman coming in with rainbows saving the day. It was just so cool to see like that little nod that one artist clearly had that other artist that was so influential for them that they gave their protagonist that lighter. And then it's almost like now you get to carry that flame too, in like a weird little sense.
Cool.
You like doing a little share?
So I guess I can go. I've got so many things, man. I had to kind of like sit down and think about what I wanted to show you guys and how I wanted to do it. So I broke it down into, I pulled out an exclusive. I pulled out a couple things to show on like what kind of a bargain I got on this crazy toy. And then of course I have the Grail and a few other things. So I'll start off with, how about we start off with the bargain? I'm gonna move around. I'm gonna move the camera around. Let me see if I can flip the camera. Okay, here we go. So here's a couple of the bargains. This was the Slave One ship that was released in 2002 after Attack of the Clones. I mean, it's a pretty good sized ship. The cockpit only has space for one dude, for Django. And on its own, it's a pretty good sized toy. Here is a 79 Boba Fett for scale. So as a collector, I'm checking eBay daily. I'm checking other selling apps daily. I am looking for taking advantage of people misspelling Boba Fett's name and looking at those listings or whatever. And so after 2002, they released a bigger Slave One in a Clone Wars pack. And now if you want to get that thing boxed, it's $400. Yeah, it's crazy. The market for all this stuff is absolute crazy. But one day on a selling app, I found the bigger Slave One. Let me take this sucker out because it's huge. Let me put this away over there. Back there. And here is the mega supersize Slave One. It's huge. It's got the cockpit automatically rotates, and I think I do have a Django in there. It's got room for 3 figures in there. And this huge thing I got on a selling app. Again, remember, boxed.
Oh, you killed Boba.
Yeah, for boxed $400. I got this on the selling app, complete, except missing a couple missiles. $25 ship. Yeah,
And how much do they go for?
They go for 400.
Oh wow.
So $25 ship. I couldn't get that guy my money fast enough. And here it is. It's huge. It's got, as a kid, I'd go nuts. It's got, you can open up the side here. It's got a little compartment you can get in there. The ramp comes down. It's got a little prisoner compartment. You can put your prisoners in. And then actually one of the first things I did when I started molding and casting is I molded up some of the bombs that were missing. So these are my crappy little molds that I made, or casts that I made for the bombs to complete the ship.
The sonic bombs are like the coolest noise in sci-fi.
Yeah, and right now, if you want to get the set of bombs, they're $25 for the pair. I'm like, no way. Look at how little this thing is. It's a 2-inch piece of plastic, maybe weighs about 10 grams. Not even that, maybe 2 or 3 grams, and $25. No way. So I molded and casted them myself. And
Nice.
I'll stop there. That's the first bargain. I'll get into another bargain I have, but I'll let someone else go next.
Well, you have to send pictures of the Django in the creative discussion later, so we can all keep our eyes peeled at the thrift stores.
Yeah, sure.
That couldn't have gone to a better home, dude. I'm sure who else would appreciate it as much as you do?
It's one of those things where I have it and I've got it and I know where it is. I just don't have the room to set it up yet. But every once in a while, I'll take it out, put a figure in there. I'll put 3 or 4 figures in there. I'll run around the house and my kids and my wife will look at me like I'm an idiot. But
Gotta do that.
Totally love it.
It's awesome.
All right, who's feeling cherry next?
I'll go if that's all right. Let's see. So when I was a kid, and then like even now, I really liked model kits, APC models or MPC or Revell kits. And so I don't know where I found this kit, but I made this kit of a dinosaur. It's a Triceratops. My wife's name is Sarah, so we went Triceratops for my wife, and it's like the perfect size for a 3 3/4 inch rider here. And so this kind of got me into like, well, I need to make a custom dude to go on here. You know what I mean? And I had one before that was Sculpey, and it was horrible, and I've destroyed it since. But that's still on my list of things to make. But
Is that your paint job?
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. That thing's got a great face.
Yeah, it's a cool model kit.
What brand is it?
And I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But the horns broke too. So these are custom ones. This is the original, but I made these at a epoxy sculpt. So they're a little bit longer and like deadlier than the originals. But that kind of, sparked me into.
Yeah, it's got that like Turok.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of like old Turok Son of Stone comics look to it. I like it.
Yeah, and I always loved Turok and all the toenail ones, and like love that stuff. So
yeah,
kind of got me into it.
Dude,
It's cool, man. It's an awesome piece.
yeah, your paint on that is stupid.
yeah.
Good.
It's
really
stupid. And get rid of it. It's dumb.
It's all dusty and dirty too, and that was like, oh,
All right.
That's old. But yeah, thanks.
Nice.
I'm-
All right, I want to show this off real quick. It's not a toy, but it's the newest thing. I just found it yesterday while we were rock hunting out at the river here. And since we were talking about the rock stuff last time, I want to show it off real quick. It doesn't look like that much in hand, but it's a piece of agate. It's like 5 or 6 pounds, and there's nothing in it at all like occlusions or anything. It's clear the entire way through. And when I pulled it out of the water, my wife and my mother-in-law were both just like, what the hell, the moment I lifted it up. So that's part one. I have actual toys after that.
I'm curious, I'm sorry. Out of curiosity, like I'm pulling up a picture of an agate because I need to know. But what I guess I don't understand like
Say again?
I guess because I don't know enough, I'm almost like missing the significance of finding a big chunk of that agate. Does it normally come small, like in small sizes, or I feel like I'm missing something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're not, they're like, you know how there's like rarities of rocks, and agate's not particularly rare, like when you find it in little chunks, because normally they're, you know, those rocks that you see in the fake mining cart that you buy the little velvet bag of at like every theme park ever. Those are usually agates, but one that size, unbroken and without any other stuff in it, is insane.
And what state do you live in?
This was Oregon.
Oh, okay.
This is out maybe an hour and a half south of hour and a half south of Portland. Or I guess it would be like west of Portland. Anyway, yeah, up in the coastal area. Yeah, that river I was at was crazy. I was pulling like big chunks of fossil bone and agates and jasper, all kinds of crap. It was cool.
You're gonna have to take some nice pictures later too and drop those in the stream discussion.
Yeah, I'll get some actual shots.
And post them on IG.
Oh, Bob, so far you're the only one who hasn't shown us a little something.
I'll do like Barrio Boba. And here's I was lucky to find him. He's from a Hydra monster in my pocket. It's a budget find. He was covered in black and I thought it was stained. But when we actually got him, I don't know if you can see him. He was clean. He doesn't have a stain on him.
Do you have a forward light like shining straight down on you?
Yeah, is it hard to see? I don't know if that's better.
Try killing it for just a sec. Neon yellow?
Yep.
Nice.
So I found it for $10 shipped. It was from the UK, and they normally go for $100. Perfect.
Wow.
So that was cool find.
Nice. Yeah, I'm jealous.
And that was the last monster that I needed to complete the set. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, rad. How complete did you go? Like all the colors, or just one of each sculpt?
Yeah, just every color of each sculpt, just to get a full color run.
Oh, damn. I just got done with 1 and 2, just one color of each.
Oh, okay.
Doing everything of everything is crazy.
Yeah, it's gone so high, it's ridiculous. And then the guys that hoard everything,
Yeah, I'm glad I started a while back.
yeah, they have like 8 of them. So
12.
they don't
of
let
each
them go.
one.
That's
Yeah.
the hard thing about it.
That is a gray area though, only because like I kind of get it. Like as much as like okay, if they're in a good home, then I'm almost like okay with it. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, like I can kind of understand that compulsion to like need to make sure that like it's that when you find them, you grab them. because you just can't leave it at that thrift store or at that garage sale or something. And like I do understand like that like thrill of finding one. And like even in that scenario there, like you mentioned, like it was a little bit dirty, so you didn't know necessarily that it was gonna be like the one you wanted. And so it's kind of like even sometimes that happens. Or Burial Boba shared the other day in his stories, he happens to have two of the Taiwan variants that have like the painted helmets. And it's kind of like, yeah, like until you have a couple beside each other to be able to see and spot these differences and start kind of like fishing a little bit deeper, you sometimes don't know. So it's that one's so tough with the quote unquote like hoarding the masses. That's just the Crumbs 2 cents though.
I think when you get to that point, when you have like 10 plus copies of one colorway, that's a point where you should start helping other collectors out.
I agree.
I agree.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
But yeah, a couple is absolutely, just to be able to spot differences between the two is cool.
I'll admit, like lately I've become really obsessed with the Lily Letties. So for instance, like I don't know why, but I've become really obsessed with like the historian part of it, where like you start seeing these guys and it's amazing in real time to see them uncover these things, right? Like one dude will start talking about it, but then somebody else might be like, well, that's actually kind of skeptical. We're not too sure. Like we've only seen one. And then all of a sudden you kind of see that somebody else is like, oh no, I've got this one. And then before you know it, they're all like, okay, like this is a figure. It does exist. This variant isn't just like a fading of paint. It is that there's like an actual separate variant out there. I don't know. That gets me all jimmied.
No, it's a
I'm with you
wrap-
on it.
it's a rabbit hole if you want to collect all the variants, right? Because then you get into, okay, what is officially recognized as a variant, or what is just, somebody played with the crap out of it and the paint's worn off. So it's one of those things. So like in the vintage Boba Fett, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 official variants that are recognized, and then everything else is just wear or paint colors. Sometimes a factory went with a darker green versus a lighter green, and when you put the two figures together, they look different, but they're not considered variants. So I mean, it's a rabbit hole if you really wanted to, nail down every color type. And there are a couple collectors out there that have every single conceivable different color. So.
And with the Star Wars figures, did they make re-releases where the colors kind of vary?
So yeah, so the other day in my stories, I posted about the blue painted helmet Taiwan Boba Fett. So initially, when Kenner really had their manufacturing in Hong Kong, and then they switched later on during Return of the Jedi, they switched that manufacturing to Taiwan. So the Taiwan variants are a little darker. So the T visor and the belt actually look really like dark brown or black instead of like the brown on the Hong Kong variants. And then when they initially started making them in Taiwan, the manufacturers thought that the plastic that they were using for the gray was too light. So they started painting the helmets blue. And then once they started actually making them, and they would see, no, it's right. They had already made a few blue painted helmets, and they got released. So those blue painted helmets, if you can find one, and they're only on Taiwan origin figures, are kind of rare. So if you can find one, and they're not cheap right now. The two I got, one of them, a guy had mislabeled it. He had labeled it on eBay as being a Galoob toy. So I think that's why a lot of people missed it he had it for something stupid like $50. So I picked it up. I've got one that I'm watching on a selling app. The guy wants $300 for it, and it's beat up. But because it's a blue painted helmet, he can demand that money, and somebody, maybe me, might end up picking it up. But it's, and it does stand out when you put the blue painted versus the regular one. Those colors really do stand out.
And how much do they go for in great condition?
Oh, in great condition, man, the sky's the limit. I've only seen one carded, like an actual, 1983 Return of the Jedi card, and that thing was $900, $1,000.
Wow.
And somebody will pay for it.
When you mentioned the bombs earlier, I couldn't help but as much as that is a lot, it was just kind of like that's not that much for certain accessories. And the one that popped in my brain is I recently saw somebody selling the Headman figure, and they happened to have the sword, the shield, and the figure, and they listed it as 5,000 for the sword, 6,000 for the shield, 15,000 for the figure, 20,000 all included. And then right away, I sent the link to a buddy of mine being like, "LOL," but it's free shipping because the person said $20,000, but free shipping, PayPal ready. I'm like, and in the comments, you just see all these dudes tagging their homies, being like, "This might be the nicest version I've seen. This is in great condition," and it's like, wow. Even to just be somebody who's like, "I just want your shield." To have 6K for one accessory, it gets wild, man.
Dude, I struggle with that too when they're like when you part things out like that. I mean, I understand it, I guess, but it hurts me deep down inside.
Like splitting up a family.
But with certain people, you hope it's going to the right place. Like, for instance, I'm sure Barrio Boba knows way more than myself. Like the brown leather capes that exist on some of the bootleg figures, and I believe one of the more common ones people are looking for are Obi-Wan Kenobis. So a lot of times people will actually reach out and be like, "I know somebody else has this cape," and even though they know somebody might be breaking up theirs, it kind of comes back to that whole, like, when you have 12, you can help a fellow collector. And so every now and then, I'd imagine it's somebody that unfortunately they're in a position where they have to, or they're also kind of like, it's time. Yeah, my one Obi-Wan can do without that cape. I'll part with it.
Yeah, so especially now with the vintage Kenner figures, man, those, if you find authentic Kenner blasters or lightsabers or capes, that's plastic gold. It is plastic gold, because I can remember, having some of the originals as a kid, and the first things you lose are the blasters. Now, if you can find, and there's ways to tell if they're authentic or not. If you can find authentic ones, man, you can demand some money for them, and people will pay it because people are looking for all those accessories.
Is there like I don't mean to interrupt, sorry, but is there like a color variation where you could noticeably tell which one is the old one compared to reproduction?
Right. So there's a couple websites. You can check out the Imperial Gunnery. They have a complete walkthrough on everything vintage, from blasters to capes to lightsabers, and they'll walk you through on how to look for authentic accessories versus counterfeit and bootleg ones. But yeah, there's lots of ways to tell, and some of those. So, in the late '80s, Kenner went and released what they call the last 17. So those were the last 17 figures they ever made, and they were on Power with the Force cards. Number one, those figures are hard to find now because nobody wanted them back then, but now everybody wants them. And it was one of those was the Luke and Stormtrooper disguise, and that figure had the only black Imperial blaster that was made. Everything else was kind of either like a blue gray or a blue black, kind of dark blue, and it's close to black. But that one was the only true black one. That blaster itself is easily like $100 now.
Wow.
Yep.
So as you were saying that about the guns, there was a store in town that it was every time you'd go in there, you like originally had this big bin of Star Wars stuff, and you'd go in and you'd grab a couple, and then all of a sudden it became you'd go in, and if the manager wasn't working, you'd be like, "No, I can't sell you any, man. Manager wants to be here when we sell from those figures," and you're like, "Okay." And then eventually it becomes like I literally just wanted to buy those bags, just full friggin' sandwich bags, just packed with guns and sabers. That's all I wanted. I just wanted those bags of accessories. I scored actually the exact Luke you're talking about with the removable helmet and stuff. And eventually it would become one of those things where the manager's like, "No, I got to price them. No, I've got to price them out first." And you're just kind of like, okay, who ratted it out? Who told him he was sitting on gold? He couldn't just sell it to us collectors anymore. He's got to flip it online. Like, fuck. Sucky Design, you're popping in. How's it going?
Okay, that's bull crap though. Like, pull it off the floor if you're not going to sell it. Don't fucking pull that, "Let me haggle with you," and bring it up to the counter. Like, pull it off the floor, put your price on it if you're going to be that way about it. That crap makes me mad. There's nothing that turns me off faster buying a toy than when you get like, okay, like here's a great example. Epoxy Crusader is at a toy market in Hidalgo, Mexico, looking for stuff for me today. And when he goes up and talks to people, they're like the equivalent of, 50 cents for a figure, 3 figures for 50 cents for like the little bootleg stuff and all that. And then he's like, oh, okay, hold on. We're not going to buy anything from this booth because he saw me typing at you in English and now he's saying they're like $5 a piece. So like, there's nothing when you get that, like, it's fine if you're trying to make money off what you're making, but when you get that super money first, like, Watto in the market haggling thing, that just grosses me out.
I think most of us too, like we're not making an investment when we're grabbing these things. Like maybe down the line, but I think most of the time, like if we find something like that, we're not looking to get it and then flip it to make some dough off of it. Most of the time, we're looking to home it.
Yeah.
So that's the part that gets really hard too, is that it suddenly becomes this whole like, oh, well, is that what it's worth? And you're like, dude, that's what it's worth right now. If I wanted to take it home and put it on eBay and flip it, that's what I'm looking to do. Sucky, we haven't heard from you yet, man. Why don't you hop in?
How's it going? Sorry, I haven't even been able to lurk around today yet. It's been a crazy day for me. Day job. We've got a 128-page issue going out this week, so it is what it is. So I'll have to go back definitely later and catch up on the video once it's posted. But I do have one ultra vintage toy that I wanted to share everybody. It's a favorite of mine. It was gifted to me many years ago when I had a studio in a big studio building, lots of artists in there. One of the elderly artists who was a friend of mine, when he finally passed away, this was given to me through the estate to remember him by. So this is circa 1950s. It was hopefully it focuses here. It was the Fatima, the harem dancing girl. So have the original box, and it's probably all reading obviously backwards. But the neat thing is it actually has its own actual real story. Fatima, the dancing harem girl, actually in the early 1900s was a slave in a sheikh's harem in Turkey, eventually escaped, made her way to the US, and basically became a dancer in vaudeville, doing her harem dances, and became famous. So they wrote articles about her and then came up with little novelty toys about her that would sell in stores all the way into the 50s for about 50, 60 cents. So what it actually is a tiny little, we can get, hopefully my camera focuses. It's a tiny little rubber harem doll on a really cheap wooden, incredibly bad dyed base, with a little hand crank at the bottom, just a little wire. So basically, when you turn it, her hips gyrate, and she does her little harem dance, which I'll try and do here one-handed. Probably with no success, but so you get the idea. But the cool part is, this was back in the 50s, and this is still the softest rubber that I've ever seen it hasn't dried out. It's been in the box most of the time. It is getting some discoloration, and I think that is actually rust from the wire inside that is slowly leaching into, the soft rubber. So I actually mean to take this hopefully to our local museum, and hopefully at least get a couple tips from somebody there as to how to better preserve her. But yeah, this is, one of my favorites. So hopefully everybody can see it, and I'll post some photos later.
Very cool, man. That's really cool.
Love how even in, like you mentioned, cheap wooden base, but even with that simplicity, like it was doing exactly what its intended purpose was. Doing the whole. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously two-handed, you can turn the crank and actually get her to do a full, hip gyration belly dance. But yeah, no, the cheap wood base, it is a little rough cut. You can actually still see some rough splinters on it. But whatever they use to dye it blue, which my suspicions are it's the same chemical they use to, put in toilet bowls and make those blue. But if you hold it with, wet hands for too long, that blue dye comes right off on you, even to this day. So.
That box is rad too. I dig the design on there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so happy that
I've got such
wasn't
a
that-
huge love for that whole.
Out of
Sorry,
curiosity,
it's Oregon internet hops in a couple seconds late. I love that stuff though. All the old ad stuff is my jam. Anytime I find it cheap, I tend to bring it home with me, even if it's just the box.
Yeah, I really lucked out. And for years, I couldn't find anything about this toy. I tried, searching online to try and find out anything about the company that manufactured and sold it. Could not find a darn thing. And one day, a couple of years ago, I actually just posted a pic of it on my social. And a good buddy of mine, did his search thing. And he's obviously much, much better than I am, because he was able to dig up old, early 1900 newspaper articles about the performer, find original advertising for the novelty toy. So I have all that to back it up now, which is great.
good find, man. Sorry. And I kind of missed, like, had your friend just acquired, or had he actually played a role in some of the designing or packaging for that at all? Sorry,
I didn't get all that.
sorry, I might have missed you saying it, but did your friend who left that to you, had he played any role in the designing or packaging for that at all? Or he just
No, he I think is something that he had picked up in his travels, when he was younger. But he in his own right though was an amazing artist. He was one of the few guys that would hand paint the beer trucks, the delivery trucks for is like some old Bavarian beer. So he'd hand paint all these, classic, young girls with the Bavarian outfit on, with the big steins of beer down the sides of these beer trucks. So he was a phenomenal artist. So miss him dearly. The not just being a cool toy with a cool package and a cool story, but it obviously has a lot of sentimental value.
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
Just peeked at eBay just to see, and there's a couple of them up on eBay, and they're all floating around in like the $60 to $90 range. I was like, oh, I got to find me one of those. Nope, not just yet.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna let mine go, at least anytime soon.
I can't even.
That's a keeper.
Just the rubber choice, even to make it do what it does. Like, it's back to again. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. No, like ripping, tearing, breaking, snapping. Bring it down.
Yeah, and it's even held down with a couple staples onto the wood base, which still, that whatever rubber they used for it, it is so soft and yet so strong it has never even, there's no signs that it's ever attempted to start ripping out of the staples or anything like that. So whoever designed it and manufactured it did a top notch. The fact that it's still holding up these days.
They don't make them like they used to.
No,
And then a different company altogether made the base.
probably.
That box is what makes it, and that having that original packaging is priceless. Yeah.
So, hey, I hate to show and tell and run, but I got to get back to the office. So you guys have fun, and I will check out the rest of the video later.
For popping in and sharing that. I appreciate you doing that. Have a good rest of the night. Well, we're going to be going almost full circle there. Jackie, do you have another thing you want to share with us at all?
Sorry, just on mute there. Yeah, sure. I'll actually take you guys for a bit of a tour here. On the subject of, this is the Star Trek shelf, and I would say for me a find, same store, I think, was it the same store you were talking about, Mike? I snagged this one here, this model still in the box. I don't know if you guys can see that okay. But yeah, security officer Odu.
We don't see many Trekkie toys, I find, in the scene.
No? All right, I know what I'm going to start making.
I bought bootleg data.
Oh, yeah? I don't know who said that. I'm sorry. Could we see it now?
Where did you find a bootleg?
Oh, no, I said I'd buy one.
Oh, you buy one. Oh, okay. Yeah, because I do have a few datas actually too. Data.
Because I think Scott Hinsey did most of the sculpting for those Playmates Star Trek toys, and they're really good.
This guy here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm almost kind of curious why there isn't a bigger scene for Star Trek in the bootleg world.
Yeah, because I can't really think of any artists off the top of my head, but I mean certainly the figures are collectible. Here's one ship I snagged. I think I got it for like $10. And I guess a question I have for fellow collectors: do you ever feel guilty, like when you snag something super cheap? Do you ever feel guilty? Or feel like you should say to somebody, like, as if you're giving this to me for $10, or do you just shut up and grab it? And
I only feel guilty and after I have it in my hands. So, dude, I ripped it off, but thank you.
There you go. Nothing more needs to be said.
Yep, that's it.
I find a lot of the time that like I'll mention it. I'll be like, hey, this is a pretty dang good find for what you have it for. And usually the response I get is something in the vein of it, like, I sell so much stuff and I sell in bulk that like it's not the right use of my time and energy to go find the prices and individually price all of these things.
yeah,
So I usually try to check in so that I don't have to bring that into my house and then feel guilty every time I look at it.
I feel like too, you're gonna you appreciate it a lot. So, it's like at least me, I'm not buying it as like something I'm gonna resell. I have it for my own collection, and I really appreciate that thing. So, to me, I maybe I justify it to myself. Yeah, I'm it's going to a good home.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
removing it from the cycle of money altogether.
yeah, almost giving it sort of a museum level status or collection.
You're preventing it from going to a bad home.
Yeah.
Yep.
or sometimes it's no home at all.
I love the wording it as a museum thing, because that's always, since I started collecting the little stuff, especially, that's always how I've liked to think of it. It's like, let me get a bunch of like historical cross sections of this stuff so I can show it to people.
Mhm.
I'll admit. So I've been talking about it a lot lately, and probably too much. But I'm starting to get that way with bootlegs. There's certain bootlegs that like I almost have this weird anxiety of nowadays, where I picture somebody who's like maybe going through a fad, or like I don't even know, maybe like they pass away, and all of a sudden like these toys that are in such small limited runs by artists that will never meet like the quantities to make it so it's like you can have every one or something. They're mass produced runs by little people. Like not, you can't call them mass produced runs, but they kind of are. But yeah, the idea of those pieces ending up in like in a landfill or in a value village or in a random just like secondhand store somewhere, it's crazy to me, to the point that you almost want to start like a separate little like forum or Discord or message board with certain people.
An archive.
Yeah.
Yeah, who are basically
it's-
equal fans, so that way you can almost keep tabs on these pieces as so and so, you know, needs to part with parts of their collection. They know the right people to maybe approach and say, hey, like I know you guys will really appreciate it, and then it goes down a line of people to see who's able to get it at that time, or because some of these pieces are going to be lost in history.
Well, to kind of validate that statement,
You
I
know
used
what
to work
cracks
at.
me up? No, you first.
Sorry about that. No, I used to work at there's a secondhand store at in town here called Rebuilt Resources, and they have a big giant bin where any of the toys that come in that they don't recognize to be like Pokemon or any like the mainstream, they'll just throw in there, including things like you'll see some Star Trek or Star Wars figures in there, and you'll be aware of what it is. But once a month, what they would do is they would just take it out back and dump it in the garbage. And so, you know, God knows. Yeah. So God knows how many figures that, because they would just try, like I scored, like I've since sold it, but I did score the original Magic the Gathering box set of the I think it was 1997, the first 8 decks that played in their tournament. And because it was a box set, they didn't understand what it was. So they threw it out. And so, yeah, last week working there, I'm dumpster diving, but yeah.
So I would be like, yes, I dumped that out this week in the back of my car.
Yeah.
Shed Quarters is actually watching from YouTube there, and he actually brought up a good point that I'm sure kind of in line with that whole, do you ever buy a piece and you feel kind of guilty? He's like, the price is actually made by the collectors. And to a degree that's kind of right? Like if the shop owner put out a price and they're happy with that price, then it really is only the collectors who are actually saying, I'm willing to spend this to find that. And if you found it for that price, then like you win for finding it for that price. Race is on.
Today, there's no excuse for you not to find the going for price. So you really can't feel bad about it.
I'd say that's definitely
Yeah, that's true. It's so easy to look it up.
And you don't have to be a mastermind. Like the reality is like Google Lens is even great for it. You take a picture of something, you use Google Lens, and it'll actually search the internet for anything that looks similar to that image. And if it's popular enough and there's a post for it, then something like something close to what you're looking for. Yep, found. Definitely a good way of looking at it. Anybody feel like going next in the old cycle?
I've got one more bargain item I can put up if you guys want to. So, and I guess around the 2000s.
Right on the heels of talking about the prices. Perfect.
Yeah, here we go. So Play School got a license to make Star Wars figures, right? And they had their Play School run. And let me get this going here. It was called Galactic Heroes. It was a series. Let me turn the camera around so you guys can see. There it is. The Galactic Heroes, Slave One, and Boba Fett from The Empire Strikes Back. Now, the figures are pretty cool, right? They're stylized. You can see Boba in there. There's hand and carbonite back there. The Slave One. Now, this thing right now on eBay or anywhere else, people are asking $100 to $150 for this thing boxed, which is nuts to me, right? If you're a collector, you're like, this is for kids ages 3 and up, man. This is for little kids, you know. But to find it complete and still in box, I got it on Mercari, which is a selling app, again for ridiculous. The second that I made an offer and they accepted it, I could not send the person their money fast enough. It's $25 plus shipping. So that was another great bargain.
Have you ever had issues with Mercari? Because I've been scared to try it, but also tempted.
So the thing with them though, it's guaranteed, right? So you've got once you get the item in, you've got a couple days to review it to make sure you like it and happy. And if it's what they said it was, then you can release the funds to the seller. Otherwise, if you have issues, then you can
Okay.
file a claim with Mercari. Yeah. But that's bargain number 2. The only thing I'm missing
cool.
now
Well, I'm
is
gonna have to give that a
I need
shot.
I need the slave one loose. And so I'm on the hunt and I'm watching a couple, but man, just loose after paying for $25 for a boxed, it's hard to pay, or at least for me anyway, to pay anything higher than what I paid for it boxed. So you can find a loose one from $40 to $60. But that was the example I have for bargain hunting and being patient, because a lot of times if you're really missing or needing something, I mean, you can get on eBay and find it for ridiculous prices. But if you take your time and sometimes if you're patient enough, you'll score.
I think that's the hardest thing, is being patient about everything.
Yeah.
You just want it yesterday if you want
Yeah.
something really bad.
Especially like in my case, sometimes I'll be waiting for months for something and then it'll pop up and the price is ridiculous. I'm like, damn, I've been waiting for this for months and here it is finally. I can pick it up, but that's still ridiculously priced. So sometimes I'll just sit on it for a couple of days and somebody will pick it up. Or eventually sometimes the seller will reduce the price enough where I'm like, all right, I'm comfortable enough to buy that now. But yeah, it's one of those catch-22s, right? Where you want it and need it. It's there, but it's crazy priced. So yeah.
And that's one of the arguments that I give for my wife is, I'm like, well, this rarely comes around. So if I get it now, we don't have to worry about it later. She's like, yeah. I'm like, cool.
Yeah, and some of the stuff, man, because of the show The Mandalorian and how they brought Boba Fett back from the dead, all the market for everything Boba Fett or Mandalorian or Jango Fett has gone through the roof. All the prices for all that stuff is ridiculous.
The toys that made us. I think as much as the toys that made us was a great program, it definitely spiked the market. Certain people who had never cared at all, suddenly were like, oh yeah, I had though. And it's like, oh.
I think that goes back to what you were saying about Star Wars, why no one's doing it now is because it's not as prevalent as it used to be when we were coming up. And this new generation, maybe like 20 years, hasn't had that powerful of a thing come up. So that's why it's not so prevalent now, I think. But if, like He-Man is coming back and that's coming up again. So it's just more or less a thing like that, where if something comes back, it's going to thrive. But if something like next generation was, what was it, in the 80s and 90s?
Well, otherwise you've got the movies to go off. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of it, right? Like, it's like you have to either go off of like next gen, which is probably, like, in my opinion, probably the most famous Star Trek. It would be the Next Generation. And the characters from that at this point are kind of flushed.
And the best one.
So yeah, what do you really do at that point to try and make the toys interesting again? Even the new Picard show wasn't all that thrilling when you have the Mandalorian beside it. So it's like, maybe that's why it's not getting bootlegged at all. And maybe the figures are even actually just really hard to find. Like at the end of the day, like they're really nice figures, maybe the people who do have them aren't people who mold and cast.
I think there's a pretty simple explanation there, actually. And it's just that Star Wars is action and has for the entirety of its run been at least partially pointed at children. And Star Trek is very distinctly aimed at adults to the point where for a lot of kids it's just boring as hell. So there's probably just not a big market for making toys of that.
And then, of course, if they weren't huge in our faces as a kid, then we don't have that nostalgia to be like, oh, I remember this and I need this toy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Star Trek's a little more scientifically accurate too. So that, with that putting kids to sleep, I totally believe it. I mean, I'm a Star Trek fan. I like the shows. I like the movies. I just never got into the toys, but yeah.
I'm sure too, at the end of the day, we could all probably go around and be like, yeah, fuck it, man, these are my favorite shows. Why aren't there toys for this guy, this dude, and start just listing off like all the characters we really want to see in figures, and it'd get pretty big pretty quick.
Well, that's kind of what got me into stuff too. Crumbs is like bootlegging, I guess, or making figures. It is, well, one, the prices went up, so my collecting was kind of like, dude, I can't afford that. And two, there were certain things like you're saying, like certain lines and characters that I want to see that never were created. So that's what got me into like following Kerfloss and trying to like figure out how to do your own stuff, and so hopefully someday I'll have something like that to share.
Does anybody else want to in that mode of sharing? Anybody else have some other stuff they'd like to kind of show and tell, share with us?
Well, I can go.
I got a cool guy I just got him. Now you go. I haven't seen one from you yet.
Sorry, yeah, I'll go real quick.
Here.
So some stuff that I had from my childhood. This is Power of the Force, the Han disguise stormtrooper, and I seem to remember it was like a Kellogg's mail away or something like that. You guys probably know about it.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yeah. And so I had this since the 90s, whenever that was, 95, with it.
95, 7, something. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's always been pretty sweet. I had, it was like when everything else disappeared, I hung on to this guy for some reason. And then, and my kids still like to play with it. And then my wife, this is her childhood Ewok playset. I don't know if you can see that, but the strings wore out, so that's been replaced, but everything else is all original stuff. And I didn't even know this playset existed, dude. It wasn't a thing when I was into toys. Like, I think it was I don't know. I didn't know it existed, but this thing is rad, man. I say what you want about the Ewoks, but I think it's a really cool playset. And if you look at some of the historical stuff when they designed it, they were actually like used like real sticks and things like that to make the prototype. I think it's pretty rad. Anyway, showing that one off.
As if you still have
I like that it's got the actual like rock trap thing on the side.
Yeah. And then it's got a little net underneath. It's hard to show you. You catch them in the net, and then they got the little chair for C-3PO. I think it's a pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kenner also did the same figures for Robin Hood, and so there's a Robin Hood playset that is an exact copy of the Ewok village. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, I always thought that was funny too, because the Robin Hood characters, like the figures, they're nothing like a Star Wars figure. They're bigger, right? And they have different shapes.
So yeah, so in Robin Hood they had Friar Tuck, I think, and so they used the body from the Gamorrean guard for Friar Tuck, or vice versa. So they're exactly the same.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's crazy.
So was the Robin Hood
Yeah, I gotta
playset
find one
worth
of
more
those.
than the Ewok?
I don't know.
Okay.
If it's not Boba Fett or Jango Fett or Mandalorian. I don't know.
I think for a lot of people, it's the fact that they can't get the Ewok village. What they'll try and do is hopefully find the Peter Pan one, and then actually do like a repaint or paint up on it, much like I think it's Swamp Thing. Turns out they had actually made a Abigail Arcane, and the reality is it got canceled, but they ended up using that figure for another set, and so a lot of Swamp Thing people now want to get that figure so that they can paint it up to look like what the original Abigail Arcane was supposed to look like. I don't know if they become more valuable. It comes down to the collector, I would say. Trash Droid, did you want to hop in and show off some more goodies? Trash Droid Studios
Oh,
or Goblin?
weird lag. Hold on a second. Am I alive?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're good, man.
Am I coming through okay again? I got the internet got wobbly for a second there.
Yeah, we got you.
I just got this guy in. I did a trade where I made a bunch of buttons for free karate chops. He does a bunch of like wrestling themed figures, and I'm completely in love with this guy that I just got in here. It's called Mascara de Muerte, something like that. And the detail on him is just super cool. And he was getting rid of this one as like a quote unquote factory spec. And like he was like, oh, it's not quite up to my standards. And I tried when I set up here, I set up with like this, my wife's got like a lazy Susan for cakes. And I was trying to like set up to where I was pointed at it so I could just leave the figures sitting there and like spin it around while I was talking about it, but I don't have the angle for it.
Jesus. I was thinking, sick, man. It was hard to make it out, but were those little faces that were actually in the cape going down, or looked concaved coming out?
Yeah. He's like, his whole storyline thing is that he like takes the masks from his fallen opponents. So, and then on the back, it runs the same motif. Like it's a killer figure. It's got such a great amount of detail, and all the ones that he's done of it so far have been one-offs with different paint jobs. And they were all, you know, the kind of thing that I admire but couldn't buy for myself because they were like $60 a piece. And then he was talking about that one, and he was like, it's got a couple little holes in the bottom of the cape I don't like, and some spots where I had to like touch up the paint. And I was like, what if I make you a pile of buttons for your brand? And he was like, I can do this thing.
Sounds like a
I
solid.
like the barter economy that goes on.
Then Goblin Mob, man, did you feel like showing us anything else?
What I have is this comic book. I don't know if everybody could see it. Marvel Comics Presents. That's one of the things that really inspired me was Sam Keith's art. I love his art. But I think it was issue 89 back in the day. And that was the only comic book I had, so I would read it over and over, and it's just inspired me to work my own art. just looking at his, because sometimes his art could be kind of simplistic in the covers, but when you open it and read through the comic book, it's just so good. So that was just one big thing when I was coming up, was Sam Keith's art.
Sam Keith's actually somebody who comes up quite often, actually. Caught me way off guard. Baba Drock, during his interview, mentioned Sam Keith was absolutely like his favorite artist and just resonates with. And I think you touched on something there that I've always kind of loved about toys. I noticed in comic books is like everybody can be involved. It's like you said, like somebody might look at it and think it's simplistic, then you realize that the stories are actually like really, really good. And so it's like even though his style might not be super like clean digital animation, he still gets to make comics and belong in that and still gets to be read. And it's like, I don't know, I just love like everybody gets to do it if you want to do it.
Yeah.
There's a place.
There's a lot more to being a comic artist than just like making pretty pictures, you know? And I think that's pretty cool. I really appreciate that when artists are good at telling the story too, you know, like that's a big part of being a comic book artist. And a lot of times that's kind of overlooked, but I think
Yeah,
that's
the instinct for the flow of time. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. To know how to lay the panels out in a way that actually showcases how time is passing. That's the tricky part.
Real weirdo. I'm gonna sneak in real quick. So of course I think all of us we have Star Wars. And mine's actually gonna be Lando. But like most of my stuff that I find is like really, really exciting or fun, it's because my brother told me. Like, that's just kind of the reality, right? I had an older brother, so the reality is like he would always get the really cool stuff, and it would be like if our parents bought like a 2-pack or if they bought a couple figures, it would always be he'd be like, "Well, these ones are mine, and you can have name like lame character that he didn't like or something," and he'd point at the ones that he hated. So when we got older, probably like one of the last times that I would have seen him, he actually mentioned to me, he's like, "Hey, I was at mom and dad's, and I noticed a bunch of my figures. I noticed you actually put your figures up. So I wanted to give you one of my homies." And so the fact that like one of his cool dudes could now actually come to my house and live with my figures was one of those things where you're like, damn right, I get to play with your toy now. So personally, that one's a big one for me. Just a Lando with the helmet on off.
How long did that take from you were a kid to now that you got it in your hands?
Probably 20, 25 years. And that's what's weird with him too, right? Like I'll admit he's not a sharer. So the fact that he gave it to me is a big deal. Like he would almost feel better knowing that he would be out in Alberta and it would be all the way here in Ontario. And he'd almost feel better knowing it's at my parents' place than knowing that he couldn't have the ability to have it if he wanted it. It's not his. It had to be in that box in their storage. That way, if he ever came home and needed it or wanted it, like it'd be his. So it is a bit of a big deal that he was willing to part with it for sure.
He would return ever so often and play with his toys. And you'd hear pew pew in the background.
I don't know. If anything, it's like you look at them and you just kind of remember how much he reminded you constantly that it was too cool and it wasn't yours. That's almost what it is. It's like it's kind of a reminder that like it is mine now. And now I am allowed to play with it. Epoxy Crusader, man, it's good to see you. How are you?
Hi guys, hi everyone.
Yeah.
I'm just reaching my local comic store here in Mexico. I went to fetch some toys for Shane from Trash Toy Studios, and I'm already touching base here. Also, my battery was about to die, and I had to speed up to charge my phone here at the comic store. As you can see, here I am.
Oh, it looks a lot calmer there than outside.
Yeah, it's very very quiet here, and it's not warm outside. The sun it's too bright by now. I thought to jump in very quick to show you the things I fetched for Shane, some bootlegs he was digging through the internet. So if you like, I'll show you some of the pieces. Give me a second here.
Goblin Mob, you'll appreciate some of the ones that he just grabbed for me here. He found me an insanely cheap pile of some of the Mexican bootleg mimps, the ones that are like gold and silver and stuff. I'm
Yeah, that's
really
cool.
excited about those.
Let me see if I can fetch a chair here to display some of this. Give me a second.
¿Me prestas otra silla, Yuri? ¿Me prestas otra silla?
Just running over there. Charging your phone, the man in chair.
Yeah, sorry guys. Okay, we have here. How do I? There it is. A little bootleg Yoda.
Yeah.
It has this wiggly eyes.
Can't beat those eyes.
This one is pretty cool. And I fetched for him some zombie figures. It's a lot of zombie figures. This seems to be made out of resin, I think.
Yeah, they look almost like ones you'd get from the art store during Halloween time here in the States.
Yes, they feel like it's that sort of material. Check this one.
That's my favorite.
These are
Ride the lightning.
funny. Also, I got for
Yeah,
him,
no, I'm in love with those guys. Those guys are rad.
let me open this box. I mean this bag. There it is. We have this
Junker
robot lord.
werewolf.
Junker, right? It's the line. The Junker.
Crumbs over there.
We have the doubt because the guy we bought it from, he didn't knew which line this was, and he was like, "Oh yeah, the werewolf," but he also Shane asked for this other werewolf, so we wasn't sure which exactly was the one he was asking for.
But it was cool because I wound up with 2 werewolves, and I'm not mad about it.
They were kind of cheap, so I also got this little kaiju for Shane.
Especially for that.
It's a little bit dusty, but
I've been after
we
one of
find
that guy
once I
for
was-
ages.
Man, I was talking to somebody about that that toy the other day. Those were basically where you'd find like the like when you're out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere and you come across a store that'll basically have like ammunition, toy, bread. In my opinion,
Yep.
like that's where you'd find those.
Here are some of the memes.
Yeah, they're bootlegs of kaiju, but they were just called like ultra dinosaurs, and they were in that like cardboard box of 12 that they just set out in the
This one moves. It has a little movement here in the waist.
Yeah, but they all moved in the waist, and I remember always being really weird because I didn't understand what material they were made out of. As a kid, like, they were just so different from all your other toys, but they still moved for some reason.
I think you could say this
they're
one
vinyl.
is
And
it's so
now
fully
that
because
shit's
it's
like-
vinyl.
Crazy expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here are the mimps. some golden and silver ones, some little bootleg wrestlers.
Oh, you're good.
This guy here, we I don't know which figure is this one.
That's Monica in the background. Oh,
is
he's
made out of-
rubber. That's even cooler.
Yeah, it's some sort of rubber. More mimps. Some more mimps and little bootlegs.
Are the Monster in My Pocket bootleg or are they Sonrix?
I think they are bootleg because some
Okay.
of them are rubber and others are like rigid plastic. So I think they
I
might
did
be.
see some that were definitely Sonrix there, but they were in that one booth I was telling you all about where the guy was suddenly like, oh, they're $5 each.
What else we have here? We fetch a bag of 32 Gengars, bootleg Gengars from Pokemon.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Specifically 32 Gengars.
Specifically, yeah, it was a lot.
It was like $25 for 32 bootleg Gengars, and I thought I could throw them in people's packages in the future.
Here they are all rubber and bootleg, different colors. Some of them has like variations. And I spotted one here that it's made out of rubber, like soft rubber. I think you can name this Sofubi bootleg. And there's another one that's weird. This one. And
Where they just like drew the face on in pen. I love it.
yes, this one has the face drawn with pen. And some over here around that I notice. They have these weird colors. I like them a lot. And are made from different types of plastic too.
I think that's probably the one I'm gonna keep out of the
This
bag. That guy's really cool. Yeah.
You have to keep this one for sure. This is very, very weird. And also it's
Yeah,
smaller.
yeah. The weirdest one's got.
You see, this is like, let me try to hold this together. You see, it's a bit smaller.
Oh yeah, it's shrunk.
And
So you probably won't be able to part with any of them, man.
and this one.
And the rest will all live.
Right.
And that's it.
Put them all
That's
in a
what I got
jar.
for Shane.
Oh, I'm so excited about this package.
That's what I got. Tons of
It's gonna be
bootlegs.
so good.
Yeah, it's a great score, man.
Yeah, the zombies are great. Also the mimps are, well, I don't remember having these as a kid, but they're definitely weird and strange and cool at the same time. I have a little doubt.
I think they were
about
a
that.
90s line. So
This one is like from the regular mimps collection. It's like it really is part of the collection of the mimps.
yeah.
Oh, that's weird because this
Yeah, what is
resembles
he-
a lot
That's
a
it.
Mexican mythology goddesses of. I think it's the goddesses of death. And when I saw this figure today, I
It
thought
is.
this was
Hold on,
like
let me-
Mexican bootleg.
It's a Coatlicue.
It is indeed
Yeah,
Coatlicue,
yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
It's
Wow.
based off of Mexican mythology.
Wow.
It's two sisters.
And it got a lot of Mexican bootlegs made of it because of that.
Okay. I thought this was just a merely coincidence, but it's good to know if it's in fact inspired by Mexican mythology. Now you have 3 of them.
Yeah, a lot of the monster in my pockets are different world myths.
Okay. Oh, that's nice. Now I think
Yeah.
I start to
I
collect
love that
some
one.
of these
That
for
pine
myself.
green is nice.
This one is soft.
Well, he had plenty more of them at that booth.
Yeah, he had plenty of these bootleg ones. Some other guys got some of them a bit expensive. I think they are scalpers, but we'll check the next time I'm around. So that's it. I tried to
Yeah,
make
those
this
other ones
a
that you
quick
were
one.
seeing, the brighter color ones, were like an official release. Oh, sorry. Long distance internet.
That's it. Now that I'm here, I also wanted to show you. Let me see if I can fetch one. We have these Spider-Man comics that are made in Mexico. In the 80s, Marvel has a license here in Mexico for an editorial called Novedades Editores. And even they have a special penciler for some of the stories that they threw here in Mexico, because Marvel wasn't able to pitch all the comics in time for the Mexican market, and they commissioned somebody to draw and create other versions and other stories, so they can fill up all the loops between stories here in Mexico when they can't catch the upcoming numbers. And many of these ones just have different stories than the ones that appear in the original or canon line of Spider-Man. And they're becoming quite popular here because they're like Mexican rares. And this is one of them.
That's right.
I saw that exact cover in one of the. No, sorry, I'm doing it again.
Go ahead, bro.
What?
I was just saying, when I was looking through the bootlegs, I saw that exact cover that you just put up right there when I was looking through the Facebook group, and I was like, I kind of want to frame that and put it on my wall.
Some of them are very rare because the guy who actually drew those numbers also worked for a pulp magazine here that's called Sexy Ladies and stuff like that. So he always drew the women very, very buxom and very sexy, and he always take advantage of that to make some noir stories with Spider-Man and some other girls. And that's become quite popular here in Mexico for collectors. And some guys in Germany, I think they pay a lot of money for some of these comics throughout these years. So this is one of the other rarities we have here around. Unfortunately, I didn't fetch anything for myself today, but you can get a glimpse of the things.
Oh no.
Shane got away with. Bootleg Yoda says hi.
Those googly eyes are sick.
Are dope, right? It's just I don't know what the guy was thinking when he glued his eyes to this figure.
Making an awesome figure. That's what he was
Yeah.
thinking.
That bootleg needs to be bootlegged.
I think he wasn't sure about the actual eyes being able to see, so he glued these things on it. I mean, it's just crazy.
I'm gonna crack up every time I look at that thing on my shelf.
I hope you wear it around your neck.
Yes, you should. You put it in a necklace.
Oh my god. I gotta
Gray,
tape
gold.
off the eyes and then
Yeah.
spray paint the rest of it gold.
Oh
There you go.
man,
There you go.
yes. You need to fetch a fake.
Send it to Sean Skirvin and have him actually cast it. Cast it in metal.
Oh, that'll be. You should try to make one of these out of.
Like, how many layers of bootleg can you do?
But he has to put the eyes on. It wouldn't be complete without the eyes.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
gotta be,
absolutely.
it's gotta be a brass figure with the plastic googly eyes.
24 karat
Yes.
gold and plastic googly eyes.
I just want to put those tiny googly eyes on everything that I own now that googly eyes can go on.
That'll be awesome.
The one day on the live when I was doing it the Skeletor, I even debated it. I was like, do I just put googly eyes on there? Because it's like, who really wants to paint inside the? Yeah.
Did you say Skeletor with googly eyes?
Yeah.
That would be sick.
They suck. Painting eyes always sucks. So if you could
Yes.
comical way of rolling with
I think
it,
I can make a bootleg Skeletor and add the googly eyes. We have some of those here around too.
and Daisy, actually, you're just hopping in and joining us. Did you have something you wanted to kind of share with the group? Give a little introduction at the same time?
Are we limited? I have a lot of stuff. So how much? What's the appropriate politeness of things to share?
You be the judge of that.
Like a
Well, that's very fair.
garbage bag's worth.
Before
What-
that, sorry to interrupt. Before that, I think I gotta go. As I said, I'm in my local comic store. I need to get something to eat. But I really wanted to make a quick jump to say hello to you guys and to show some of this little thing. So I think I gotta fly now. So it's been amazing to be with you this brief moment. Hopefully the next time I have some figures to show or more figures to show or more bootlegs for Shane.
Sounds good.
I'm sure more in the future. Man. Have a good one.
Have a great day, everyone. See you around.
All right. I did not come prepared with toys. I came prepared with my weird cross stitches that I haven't gotten rid of, and I think they're funny, and also some funny shirts that I've made. So that's what I'm going to show you. So this is one of my favorites. I don't know why nobody has bought this because I think it's hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Nice.
Also, this is one of my masterpieces.
Do you have plans for the text?
Yes, it's going to be the very popular line, "That's my purse, and I don't know you." I haven't figured out because it's like
Excellent.
staggered. It's really hard to make text like that. So I'm trying to figure out, you can see I practice with like a fabric marker because I'm trying to see if that's going to work better than actually stitching the text. So he's been in progress for many years. I took a break from cross stitching. I had a show a couple of years ago and I sold a bunch of pieces, and then these are kind of the things that haven't sold. And then I moved on to shirt making. So this is a shirt that I made. It's Tina. It says, "Which please." These are all, I dyed all of these. So that's a new thing for me. Says, "Forgot to leave my sass at home." I've just been like trying out different things, especially during quarantine, because I get bored easily, and it's fun to practice with different techniques, because I always thought that tie-dyeing had to be that stereotype of like rainbow colors in a pattern. And then I was like, oh, I can make so many different types of things. And the next thing I want to do, I've been talking to a couple of like vintage sellers on Instagram about taking like vintage clothes that don't necessarily sell super well and ice dyeing them. So it's really fun to just not really know how it's going to turn out and just experiment with it, and also just do random things for people of whatever they want.
What's the ice dyeing? Sorry.
So ice dyeing is basically the like traditional type of tie dyeing is where you like put rubber bands around it and then you immerse it, whereas ice dyeing, you lay it out on something that can drain and then you put ice in random patterns on top of it and then you squirt dye on top of it. So that's what makes, I'm trying to find one that has a good example. The random spots and colors, because that's like where the different ice cubes were and like the runoff. So it just gives it a different look and texture, which I like. And you can stay in the same color scheme or do different colors, but I kind of like staying in the same color. So that's been my fun thing. And also I make a lot of like really offensive shirts that people don't really like. So yeah.
Very cool.
Out of curiosity, sorry, like, do you silk screen them at the moment, or how do you get your texting onto your shirts? Are you doing a pattern on, or?
Yeah, so I have a Cricut, so I cut everything with my Cricut. I designed them on my computer, my phone, and then the Cricut cuts vinyl with iron on vinyl, and then I use it. I have a heat press, so some of these I did early on, and a lot of them I didn't get the technique down as well as I do now. So my newer ones are a lot better. It's a trial and error, just like with everything, but the stuff that I've made more recently, like I made a hoodie. It's actually my car, but someone was like, oh, I thought that was just something you bought. Like it looks really good, which was such a compliment because it takes so much work to try to figure out exactly like how much time to put heat on something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can down that. Does anybody else want to go next? Share some things, or if Daisy wanted to keep going, I don't mean to just assume.
Oh no, I'm good. Although I do have my random Gudetamos here, just because these were random blind box Gudetamos, and I got the two that I wanted by chance. I only bought two, and I was like, I really want the bacon and the one with the mustache, and I got the bacon and the one with the mustache. Gudetamo is one of my collections.
Anybody else feel like hopping in at the moment? Sorry.
I got one I can share. So I mentioned I was like super into GI Joes when I was a kid, and one of the coolest things about that for me was the card back and the little like file cards and all that jazz. And so I kind of like, let's see if I can make this work. I replicated what I had when I was a kid. I kept them in like it was like my mom's recipe box, but it's like a metal file box, you know? And so this is like what I had, this is not the one, but this is similar to what I had when I was a kid.
Now they might be good recipes according to how your mom cooked or not.
Yeah. And then inside I've started collecting a few of these file cards and stuff again. Like I'm not into like super pristine stuff. I buy the cheap stuff so I can, because I kind of just appreciate the thing, you know. But that's a super nerdy thing I got. And then have a couple of the, you know, cross-sell sheets in here. This one's Transformers, actually. This was my brother-in-law's when he was a kid. I ended up with it. But I always loved those things too. You know, I'd pull them apart as a kid and like get a poster on my wall, like, you know, this thing's what I'm buying next type of thing. So I dig all that stuff. That's kind of like, it really inspired me to get into illustration and design, that all that stuff. I nerd out on the details and the cross sell on the back of the card, all those things. You know, the flag points. Like, I think they really that was the peak of making the product, the packaging design work for the product. But that's my nerdy thing.
And when you were a kid, like are those from when you were a kid and you would cut those all off the back of your figures?
That's exactly how I did it, but these aren't the ones I had when I was a kid. Those went away to the other family with all my toys. So we were super nerdy about it. Like, we had every figure. This is my brother and I. We had a plastic baggie for the figure with all of his accessories and all that jazz. And then we had the file card cut out and put in the file by, there's G.I. Joe on one side, Cobra on the other. They're alphabetized. Like, we were super nerdy about it.
So I've got to ask them, like, how did you acquire those ones? Like, are those cut off from regrabs, or is that like a G.I. Joe thing?
That's a G.I. Joe thing. So these are vintage ones but they were already cut. I wouldn't cut them out. But they're cheap because they're cut. A lot of people want the whole backing card, you know? And so, but it's cool to me because it's kind of how I did it when I was a kid.
And I'm sure Mario Bubba knows a lot more, but in Star Wars, a lot of times is now actually like the ones that have been cut just around like the blister. Because a lot of times it'd be to try and fit them into like stockings or surprise kids wrapped in different ways, or even some kids I'm sure just cut them that way. And now some people are trying to actually be able to retrieve those. It's so weird how like that nostalgia plays right in.
Yeah, you know, I was into Joe's for a while too, and I did the exact same thing. I would spend, you know, you take the figure out of the blister, play with it for a little bit, but then spend an hour just looking at the card, right? Looking at each one of the little squares of the figures of who I was missing or who was coming next. And then the file card, to me, that gave, you know, an entire backstory to that figure. So when you're playing with it, you're already got that backstory in your head. You know, this guy used to play baseball, so he's going to want, so I need to find something that looks like a baseball bat. So along with his other accessories, he's walking around with a baseball bat too and knocking heads off with his baseball bat. So, you know, I think that kind of giving those toys a backstory kind of gets you hooked. And I think that's why a lot of times, you know, when I release a wave of my figures, I like to give them all a little backstory too. You know, so when you're holding it, you know, like if you get the shy girl, you know that she's pretty shy, but if you you know, if you mess around, she's gonna shank you. So I mean, that's good to know.
No, we used to do that too. You know, those little like they're like skewers that you get at the restaurant, but they look like swords. Like that'd be like swords with figures, and like we used to dig like tunnels that they would, you know, in the backyard and stuff. We actually dug into electrical lines one time, and I got in trouble. But that, I think that kind of like creativity is sort of what I'm trying to do now too. Like it all kind of ties together. I would make little things for these little figures, and I guess I'm still doing that.
Yeah. All right, I got one last share I'm going to put up. If you guys are interested in seeing it, and it's my grail. You know, as a Boba Fett collector, there are a few figures that I want to have in the collection, and of course, now if you try to get a 77 or a 79 Boba Fett on a card, those prices are ridiculous. A couple years ago, though, there's a guy I follow on Instagram, and he's a big flipper. He'll buy and resell. He had a family friend reach out to him, and she had stuff that she had bought back in the day and just put in a box and put in a closet, and she was ready to sell. And one of the things when I saw that picture that was in there was a tiny little white box. And it was a tiny little white box with stuff in it. And I reached out to him and I said, is that a complete Boba Fett mail away figure? And he's responded that it was. So when the first movie came out in 77, the toys came out in 78. And soon after, Kenner started putting little displays on there that you could mail away for a Boba Fett figure. And you had to collect so many proofs of purchase, send them in, and then they would send you the Boba Fett figure. And it came in a tiny little white box. And the first mail-aways had the box, it had a catalog, it had a note to consumers, it had a bagged Boba Fett. And then the early releases of those mail-away figures had what's called a sweepstakes entry. And the figure that I bought from this guy is that. Let me turn the camera around. Here we go. And this thing makes me break through my deodorant every time I look at it or think about it. And here it is. There's the white little mail-away box. The bagged and completely sealed Boba Fett with his blaster. The note to consumers. And this was saying that originally they were going to release Boba Fett with a launching rocket, but because some kid actually choked and died on a missile from a Battlestar Galactica Cylon Raider, they decided to sonically weld the missile to the back of Boba Fett. And that's what that note to consumers is. Here is the sweepstakes entry where you could literally win, sign up and win every single Kenner Star Wars toy and go see Empire in person. And then the catalog for that accompanied the figure. Now I sent this in to get graded, and you can see CAS graded it. Let me see, an 80. So there are a few minor issues, but this is actually a 1978 Star Wars mail-away Boba Fett figure. And it is the prized possession of the collection. This is my grail. And I got it for a ridiculous price. Still a little expensive, but still not as crazy. I recently saw one on eBay where the guy had everything, and he was missing the, I think it was a sweepstakes entry. And I said, hey, usually these came with a sweepstakes entry, and he pulled the listing and he went to the box and he found the sweepstakes entry. So he listed it and he sold it for $1,800, which is still a pretty decent price. And I didn't pay that or anywhere, not even half of that for mine. So this is it. This is the baby. This is what's either going with me into the ground or it's going to one of the grandkids at some point.
So you sent it in to get it graded?
I did, yeah.
How much did you pay for the case?
So the case and the grading and everything else maybe was like totally like 40 or 50 bucks, I think.
That was on top of them grading the figure, right?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say that'd be it's fucked up, but it's a pretty cool way to die if Boba Fett rocket. You choked on a Boba Fett rocket.
Although then he ruined everything. They had to redo their whole design for that figure.
Right. So originally those Battlestar Galactica figures, it was the Cylon Raider, it was the Cylon ship. Yeah. And it had missiles that launched. And I had that thing. And so some kid actually choked and died on one of those little missiles.
Yeah, I was so my friend, so I live in Cincinnati, and my friend, I'm not from here, but I've lived here for 5 years. And one of my friends, her dad actually worked for Kenner, and she asked me to come over. This was several months ago when that episode of what is the show called? How Things Are Made, that they did a whole episode about those toys and about Kenner, and her dad was on the episode, and she was just geeking out. And they talked about that, about the remaking the missiles because of that. So yeah, so in 2010, Hasbro did release the Boba Fett with a firing rocket, but the rocket isn't that small anymore. They made it so it's like 2 or 3 inches big, and so when you put it into his pack, it's ridiculous, and you'd have to be really hungry to swallow that big ass.
You'd have to put forward effort to choke on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So they did release it, and that was also, they also made that a mail away, so you had to mail away for that. And now the prices for that thing, the newer, the 2010 rocket firing Boba Fett, are ridiculous too. I got mine on eBay maybe a year or two ago for $60. Now they're going for 3 or 4 times that.
And, I gotta ask, actually, was that a custom case that you had made for it, or is that one that does exist for people that have the full set?
So CAS makes that case specifically for that release. And there were other graders I was looking into, but they were the only one that I found that actually had that case for that specific release. Yeah.
I saw you creep up with something with teeth.
Yeah, when we were talking about when you did my little interview, I was thinking, did I have anything that survived my childhood? Because my childhood was pretty fucked up. But I actually do have something. It's from the Warrior Beast. I believe that was the line that was called the Gecko. I don't know if y'all
Is that
see
like
it,
a
but it's too bright.
looking Motu body with a Chinosaur head?
Yeah, there were different creatures. And I know I don't know if it's Underground Warriors, but they make bootlegs of them, official bootlegs of them. I forget what they're called. But my guy name was Purple. And I swore he
Wotu?
smelled like grape. What's that?
Sorry, what?
I was asking what you were saying.
I think he asked if it was Motu.
Oh, I was asking if Wotu was the one you were talking about, those like official bootlegs.
I can't remember who makes them. I think it's Underground something. But these ones are made by Remco.
Yeah, that thing's rad as hell. That's right up
But
my
that's the
alley.
only thing that I have that actually survived my childhood.
I'm kind of curious now. I gotta look more into these guys. Because clearly it must have been pretty rad if it resonated that hard that you needed to keep him around.
Yeah. Still liked action figures, and then grew up and just kept him, and finally was able to afford stuff. Just kept him around.
I think we can all almost remember that day that things disappeared too. Like Death and Strawberries mentioned it. For a lot of us, it's like there's just like they were gone. And you'd start asking, being like, where'd this go? Or where'd that go? And no, it wasn't around anymore. It'd go off to this person, or it's crazy how many of us are trying to like almost rebuy our childhood at this point now. And it's almost like a race of who can get it first and who can find it where, and then post it up on eBay.
Dude, I used to have the entire line of those Earthworm Jim Playmates toys too that Scott Hensey sculpt, and they were fantastic. And I don't know what happened. Somewhere along the line, they disappeared. I'm guessing my wife might have put it in like a Goodwill box or something. And like, I constantly miss those guys. I have the Psychro actually still. He survived. I've got him, but all the other ones are gone. So if anybody's got those, I'm in the market.
Dude, those toys were insane.
Hardly anything survived my childhood in terms of toys. Like I could probably fit in my hands the amount of toys that survived, but I do have my entire collection of Pokemon cards from my childhood still. So that's pretty cool. Somehow I kept those, but that's because they stayed at my mom's house. They've been at my mom's house this whole time until recently.
I think the only thing I have left from my childhood is my set of Goosebumps and my box set of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Those are cool ones to survive.
I have my Goosebumps books too.
I don't know how you guys held on to anything from your youth. I moved so many friggin' times. Like, no. How many times do you have to like pack up your apartment or something? You're like in your early 20s, or you're like Yeah, no.
All of the stuff that survived is all stuff that was like still at the house that my mom lived at until I just took them. So nothing like actually traveled with me and all of my moves.
So we've been going for about 2 hours now. Out of curiosity, anybody got some more shares they want to get out of their system, or move on with their Saturday evening?
Are you
I
implying
think
that you think
I
you have a
have
social
been
life?
summoned in the near future to cook dinner.
Well, there we have it. So Trash Joy's got to cook some dinner. But did anybody else have anything else they wanted to share? I don't want to just like cut anybody out or anything like that. If anybody's got anything else they want to kind of last minute throw in there. So quiet. Movie. Well, I think the 2 hour mark is a pretty solid place to kind of call it then. Thanks so much everybody for coming in. I really appreciate seeing some new faces. Jackie, Daisy, it was great having you guys come in tonight. Goblin Mob, it was nice to have you come in this evening, see your face. Of course, Death of Strawberries, Trash Show Studios, Barrio Boba, always a pleasure. And Barrio Boba, I've got to keep an eye on your pages later there too. I know you saw you posting them. I didn't get a chance to catch up on everything. I feel like I'm behind on everybody right now. Everybody have a great, safe rest
I'm
of the-
trying to peep at what's behind you right now.
What, behind me?
Yeah.
I could give you guys a really quick tour if you guys want to take a really quick look.
Please.
All right, so it's a mess, but let me turn the camera around. So this is where the magic happens. It's actually a pool table that I work on. And this is where wave 3 is getting set up to be sold. And yeah, everything kind of fell over there. And then, but this is in here with me. So I've got some carded Boba Fett stuff in here. Let's see, we'll move around. I got this dude on the wall. Yeah, I have a friend who teaches like shop at a high school, so he cut that out of sheet metal for me. That's up on the wall. And then behind me, what was behind me are these shelves with just boxed figures, more toys, lots of toys that are still boxed because I have no room to display them anywhere. Eventually, the plan is to make this room into a kind of like a museum, and to help put the stuff up on shelves so that people can see it when they come in. But that's all toys. And then I have this really cool dartboard in here, and that's it. Real quick rundown.
All right, your turn, Crumbs.
Oh, everybody always sees that stuff all the time.
Yeah, but I haven't gotten a tour, so.
Yeah, I'm on a laptop versus cell phone. So I need to take more shelfies. I'll leave it at that. I need to take more shelfies more often.
All right. I will accept selfies
Yeah,
and
you
live
should do a
for it.
comprehensive shelfie.
Admittedly, I think my 1 year is coming up on Indie Toys. That's how big of a little baby in the scene I am. My 1 year is coming up, so maybe I'll shelfie then. I always feel weird. It's like, how do you take a picture of the full shelf? Right? Like, I'm sure you guys get that. It's like, how do you try and get
Detail. It's hard.
exactly something? It's like everything's. I think what ends up
You
happening.
do one zoomed out one, and then you come in and hit each segment.
I like
You got a
like
10 photo
theater,
limit per
baby.
post.
Or
There.
just do it all in video, I guess, and just pan by.
Or I can just be real cheap. I'll just go through all my unboxings ever, and I'll just take like 5 seconds every single one of them, and I'll just put that all together, and then that way I'll just be moments of and just be continuously that.
No,
Yeah.
I want brand new shelfies.
I think everybody needs to start taking some more shelfies in general. I think that's something that the scene needs to start doing a little bit more. Is taking some more selfie pictures. I think we're all kind of bad for that. We almost like it's like we get something in, we haven't had a chance to tease that we've gotten it in yet, and then we're almost afraid we take a picture, then it gives away the fact we've gotten it in, and yeah. Maybe you guys can relate. I don't know. Maybe I overanalyze it too much. You guys try to have a good rest of your Saturday evening, though. Thank you so much again for coming in, everybody. I really, really appreciate that.